Welcome to the Sheffield United Way. It is a chance to look back on Forest 2, Sheffield United 1. This is going to be very much a fan review of that match, which some of us will feel like we endured, some of us will feel like we enjoyed, because we are going to have representation from Nottingham Forest as well. A 2-1 win where we saw a 1-0 score after 3 minutes. We saw Hamer with an absolutely incredible strike, and Wood on 89, a gut punch right at the end. This was a match that Sheffield United lost again away at the City Ground. United's poor record at that venue continues. Should we have got more? Well, let's get the views of fans. And I am going to begin by welcoming Neil, who joins us for the first time on this channel. Neil Kemp, you're a Blades, and I want to get your thoughts on this because you were there. Talk us through the atmosphere and how did you feel after watching that match, my friend?
Yeah, the atmosphere was quite subdued in the area I was, because I was actually in the home side. So it was we were right near the Blades fans, who were brilliant all the way through. But it started off, they were really, really confident, the Forest fans singing away. And to be fair, I thought we were just going to get mullered after the first 5 minutes. But we soon grew into the game. But it was loud, and the Blades fans did us proud.
The Blades fans definitely did do us proud. Another Blades fan who's going to do us proud on this particular programme. Phil, great to have you on. So,
cheers, Al.
What were your thoughts as well?
I think we were poor for 20 minutes. I think anybody that was there will tell you that. We seemed to be in a position whereby we sideway passed and didn't really want to take responsibility. And I think just at some point, 1-0 down so early on, somebody just decided that we were going to go for it. And I think for an hour, it'd be interesting what the Forest perspective is like. But I think for an hour, we were by far the better team. And they had chances, we had chances. But I was pleased with how we ended the game. But I still think with 4 kids on the pitch in a Premier League match, it's a disgraceful position that we're in. But I'm hoping that will change over the coming weeks.
So who do you blame for what you've just described as a disgraceful position we're in, Phil?
I sort of blame everybody. I blame, and I know in this sort of position and whatever that you guys speak to the club and I don't, and therefore I've got no idea what's going on in the background. I'm sure that there's an amount of work going on, but to be 6 points in and have no player up top and be trusting the guys that we've got coming off the bench, you've got to blame. I mean, I'm not going to point the finger at anybody, but you've got to blame the process, I think. That if you've got Ndiaye going when he did, if you've got other going at the end of last season when they did, we should have been planning for this a lot earlier than what we appear to be doing.
Neil, do you echo those sentiments?
I do. I think it's criminal that with the fact we've just got development squad players coming on to replace, and you could see that. I mean, later on in the game when Yates came on for Forest, that changed the dynamic of it. And when we ran out of steam on the top of the pitch, I mean, I just thought Sula's, he shouldn't be anywhere near a Premier League first team, but the lad has got so much promise. I really rate him. And if he, once he continues to learn, that's great. But he's putting himself about. He's really working hard. And Benny Traore at the front of the pitch, I think he's going to be a star. But from a point of view of where we are now, who do you blame? Is it planning? Is it the fact that we had last minute situations which we thought were under control that weren't? But we knew we were losing the City lads. So potentially we should have done something much earlier on that score.
Well, I might play a little bit of devil's advocate. I like to be balanced. I think we've brought in 7 players, 7. And we will probably bring in 9 by the close of the transfer window. Iliman Ndiaye gave the club his word that he would sign a new contract. If a man doesn't have his word, what does he have? He's then gone back on that and he's gone to Marseille. I don't believe any other club had put in for him. He'd have gone. I think it was just Marseille. I think they probably tugged on the heartstrings. They maybe said, if you don't come now, we'll never sign you. Who knows? Sander, I don't know really what the situation is there. I don't know whose sort of fault we are pointing any fingers at. I will let Jimmy, another Blade, jump in and save me from saying anything I shouldn't. What do you think, Jimmy?
Also, I say something that I shouldn't. Good morning, everybody.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, lads. Good morning. Throw me into the fire there, Hal. But I agree with both points, to be honest. I think there is fault on all sides here. There's no argument against we were losing Tommy Doyle and we were losing McAtee, so we need to plan for those replacements. Illiman and Sander, they were in last year of the deal. We knew this were a possibility. How do you replace Illiman and Dye? I think more of a pertinent question now is, do you hold on and not forego the games before the end of the window, but would you rather hold on for your best target and the best possible option that you can get? Or do you just bring somebody in to try and be an upgrade on Asula and Traore, but not quite as good as we probably could have get if we'd have waited? So it's a difficult one, isn't it? And fans will be split on that.
I think the problem with that, Jim, is that in an ideal world, let's talk Archer, right? I agree with you. Archer looks like he's the real deal, and therefore he's somebody worth going after if we can afford it. So there's an argument to say that we hang on and we hang on. But the problem is that people might say, yeah, I'm going to come. If you get the price right, I'm going to come. But going back to the Illiman and Dye situation, I'm a salesman, right? An order is not an order until it's in writing. You can make all the promises and then right at the end, somebody comes and gazumps you. So we are in that position whereby I think we've got to get something done really quickly. We're running out of games. There's a City game, which is a free hit, but then we've got Everton. We need to be in a position against Everton a week on Saturday, a week on Sunday, where we can absolutely go at that game full tilt with the opportunity to get 3 points. If we don't, it's far too early to say that it's anything other than, just a loss. But we find ourselves in a really difficult position, I think, because we will be cut adrift already with some other big away London games to come where, they're going to be challenging at best.
I agree with that. But sorry, Hal, because I know you were just going to jump in there, but just a small point would be the transfer deadline comes before the Everton game. So if we do see the City game as a free hit, then what is the rush in getting somebody in now, as opposed to going all in for Archer? Obviously talking to other targets in the background, but people are saying, move on from Archer. We need somebody in now. And I understand that thought process. But if we can get Archer by waiting and being patient, and he's going to be the one that we think gives us a real chance of avoiding relegation, then why don't we stay in for him whilst negotiating with everybody else right up to the deadline if necessary? None of us want it to go that long. But because City's technically a free hit, then Everton is the game we need our strongest possible 11 out for.
I agree, Jimmy. One of the things, though, was evident. I mean, I thought Sousa had a really good 60 minutes. He looked composed.
He did.
He looks a right unit in there. And you could tell he's clearly not match fit. But once he becomes match fit, he's going to be an absolute terrific asset for us. But I think the other thing that struck me yesterday is that he's still finding his way with the teammates. So while we're waiting for players to come in this window, we're really not gelling as a unit as we should be. But I saw green shoots. I saw a lot of signs yesterday where stuff was going on. And even if, goodness, we talked about Asula already, but if McBurney was in that team last night, that would have made a big difference for me.
Yeah,
absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more, Neil. That there were so many times when we were looking for someone to play the ball up to, just to make it stick. And I'm very conscious that we haven't had a Forest fan opinion yet, and I do think we should. I just think that's only the right thing to do. So I'm going to just very briefly do, because I think it's really important to get the views of fans. Please do pop them in the comments. Noah, so in the first 15 minutes we were poor, obviously conceded the goal, and then there wasn't much better for a little while after that, but we did massively grow into the game for about the 20th minute, and we were the better team until the 80th minute. A cross that was poorly dealt with led to us getting nothing from the game, but overall a much better performance. Scott has said we dug in and showed that we can play at this level. New players needed in time to bed in, especially those from other countries and cultures. That's what's needed. But then again, that's what pre-season is for. Concerned that United's core that lasted so long since Wilder is now fracturing. We need to evolve, but the players need to bond and trust each other. Quality definitely needed to give us depth. Interesting thoughts. So Dave is a Forest fan, and Dave, a fair result in your opinion?
Just about, lads. I think the way I look at it, I mean, I'm very conscious. I'm talking to some really knowledgeable and insightful Sheffield United fans. I mean, what I would say, let's talk about Sheffield United. It's easy for me to come on here and be partisan and talk about my own team. I think there were lots of good things for Sheffield United to take out of that game. It was a game of phases. I think the first 20-25, it looked from my point of view that we were going to use that extra year of recent experience at this level to kind of sort of swamp the Blades. But then from about 25 on to the other side of half time, I thought Sheffield United really grew into the game and played some really good football. And in a way, the game hinged on Worrell and McKenna bumped into each other, and Traore went through, and Nick Turner made a crucial save low to his right. That goes in. I think Sheffield United probably win the match. That was saved. And then, as has been mentioned before in a very perceptive comment, the introduction of Ryan Yates, who I was kind of slightly surprised didn't start the game. He changed the whole flow of it. He went and grabbed that midfield area that Norwood and company and Sousa. It's a good point about Sousa. You've got the thing about Sheffield United is it looks to me like you've got several really good players on your hands, and we're in a similar position because we've got guys who are still learning the trade, who in time will be really, really good assets. I mean, Hamer is a class act. I mean, that was a beautiful goal he scored. He took up an unbelievable position. He was the only person of about 30,000 people in that stadium who knew where to be. So the corner comes in. He was in a 10-acre field, as we say, at the far post, and he bent it back in right over everybody. It was a thing of wonder. And at that point, I kind of thought to myself, we all thought that we were going to get a carbon copy of the playoff semi-final second leg, where we started well and Blades ended certainly to 90 minutes on that night as by far the better team. So I think the way I look at it is I'm glad we got out of Dodge City with the points, but I think for both teams looking in the round, there are really good things. I think for us, where maybe, your guys, Wolves, Everton, Luton, and some of the other teams, that we're in a relegation battle. Let's get that out of the way now. We've got second season syndrome to deal with, and we are in that battle. So that's the first thing to say. I never come on. I'm not one of these, I love Forest, so we're better than you. I don't do that. That's it, lacking in intellect to me. But where I do feel we have a slight advantage, and I felt it Monday night watching Wolves at Manchester United, we've got a goal scorer. We've got somebody who's a focus at the top end of the field. Now, I think had your lads had Taiwo last night, you'd have won. Had Wolves had Taiwo at Old Trafford on Monday night, you'd have won. And he just gives us that little bit. I mean, to score that goal after 3 minutes, that was kind of beyond my wildest dreams. Because my view of that game, lads, was I was really anxious. And I was anxious because so many of ours were overconfident. And the cognoscenti had us, for the first time in a long time, as clear favourites to win a match in the Premier League. Now, to me, that gives... If I was Sheffield United last night, I was thinking... I would have gone there. I'd have been Heckingbottom. Heckingbottom would have said, remember what happened here, 18 months ago. Let's put that right. And that lot out there in the media think that you lads aren't going to win here. So go and prove them wrong, right? So I think for Sheffield United, there are lots of good things. I mean, Traore will get you a goal. Sousa looked good. The lads at the back, after a shaky start, I think they grew into it. The truth of the matter is, it was a game that could have gone either way. We got it, and I'm like, thank goodness for that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, lots for Sheffield United to be positive about, from my view, because the way when I go to a football match, I don't just look at 11, I look at 22, and so to offer you lads some comfort, and it must be hurtful for you because I listened to both Steve and I listened to Paul. And the pair of them had it absolutely right. That Steve got into ours at half time. He said, you've started on top. You haven't taken advantage of your superiority and you've let them back in. He accused ours of being complacent. And I think that's about right. And then Heckingbottom said to his, look, you're in this game, go and take it. And they were taking it. But I just think Yates coming on, Ryan's not the best player in the world, but he's just got an ability to be kind of in about 10 different places at the same time. I don't know how he does it.
He reads
and then the other thing, I think he does, Neil. He's just got some innate, but I mean, he's not always been the most popular with ours. I mean, he used to get frightful stick, and a lot of it unwarranted. But then most of the stick that footballers of various clubs get is unwarranted. It's people who have no
YouTubers.
Yeah. And it's like when Wood came on, right? I was sat in the Trent end, and Wood came on, and around me there was a general consensus of, oh, what's he putting this guy on for? And so, I'm really sympathetic, because I know that to play in front of 30,000 people on that pitch with that much focus on you is unbelievably difficult, whoever you play for. Mm-hmm. And my sympathy was with Chris Wood, because I know he's had lots of abuse, and he stuck his head in there, and it was a really, really good goal. And it, for me, I just sort of stood there open mouthed, because at the time I couldn't see where we were going to get a goal. I thought Sheffield United were the more likely winner at that time, or certainly up until Yatesy came on. So no, from my side of the fence, and looking in at Sheffield United, because your team interests me as much as mine does, there are lots for you to be positive about. And like, you've got Manchester City next. You can just go and have a go, and whatever happens, we've got City. I mean, our next two, we've got United and Chelsea away, and we're going into those with the same mindset that we can just go and give it a whirl and see how it goes. The key game, listening to you guys, the key game for you, I would suggest, is Everton. You have to get something out of Everton. We will look at Everton when we come to play them. Right, that is something where, in that sort of morass of teams, if you like, at the bottom, there are certain ones that you kind of pinpoint your games. I don't think we're pinpointing United or Chelsea, but we're looking at Burnley as our next home game. That's the crucial one for us. And then our next home games after that are Brentford and Luton. Yeah. So it's and
we do the same. You look ahead and see where you can get a pick.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm very conscious that I'm talking to a lot of Sheffield United fans, and I
ask you a question.
Certainly,
I see that. Is there a contrast between, when Forest went up, you lost a load of players because you had all of those loans go back?
Yeah.
We're in a similar position that we've lost a good chunk of, pretty much all of the goals that we were creating last season. We've got to build. I see the start that we've had to endure very similar to what Forest started with last year. A lot of newcomers coming in, a lot of people trying to gel, trying to get a method of play with a complete new set, a core of the team. So, I think on the one hand, I see the green shoots, and I'm not too despondent at the minute, because I think if we do something in the window, it'll change. But on the other hand, what I'm really concerned about is our defensive capability, which I thought was the strongest part. And if I look at the goals that we conceded against Palace and against Forest last night, these are all areas where we've not stopped the cross coming in, and a striker in between three centre-backs has got in. I mean, the Chris Wood one, scripted, right? Because it's the only sort of goals that Chris Wood scores. But to me, it's criminal that we allowed. What was it? Aurea that put the crosses in?
Yeah, Serge put the crosses in for both, Neil. Yes.
And we didn't cut those out. And then, of course, Wood and the other, I can't say his name, right?
Awoniyi.
They were both really good headers, but what was criminal for me is that they were free headers. They weren't even under a challenge. No. And that's the part of our game I thought would be most solid.
Yeah, do you know what? I looked at your lot last night, Neil, and there are parallels from what we were going through this time last year. Where we're slightly different to you is that we signed about 7 million last year, where Blades have been a little bit more circumspect than we
we're selling ours,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my thoughts were like most people who are not Sheffield United supporters, people around the country who love football. Why is Iliman Ndiaye going out the building? Why is Sonder going out the building? No, when we were promoted, we had our Forest conversations, and Ndiaye and Berger were two people we'd like. Let's go and get those two from the place. We obviously Morgan. We got Morgan, and Morgan was sort of associated with Sheffield United, but I think, unfortunately, this league is so unforgettable. What I would say about Forest, what we did last year was we came up and we tried at the start to play in the way that had been so successful for us in the Championship, and it left us so wide open. I mean, watching last night's match was redolent of two games we played in September last year, where again we were kind of expected to win to a certain extent. We played Bournemouth and Fulham, and we were ahead in both, and we got beat in both. And it been, those are those games that we're thinking, right, we can get something. And Forest were just far too open. And then we'd been beaten 6-0 at Manchester City. We lost at home to Tottenham. We had a horrendous night at Leicester where we lost 4-0, where Steve Cooper was literally on the brink. And then what Forest did, and I'm really proud of them for doing it because it didn't show any hubris, they altered the way they played. And they actually, Forest played in a way that they didn't really want to. They went kind of 5 at the back to add that extra solidity. Because if nothing else, if you're going to be hard to break down, then you're at least in the game. And the 5 at the back, I tell you what we did last year. We went to Liverpool in April, and to everybody's surprise, Steve left Brennan out. And Brennan had been the talisman for us for so long. And he went 5 at the back, and we lost at Liverpool, but we lost 3-2, and we could have got something out of the game. And from then on, that game was like a watershed. From then on, we had this impetus. We then beat Brighton at home. We had a really good go at Brentford and should have won but got beat. And then we ended up beating Southampton, getting a draw against Chelsea, beating Arsenal with only 18% possession, which I believe is a record for the Premier League. And then we ended up staying up. And it was this idea that Forest decided to do something that was against their nature, out of character. And to me, what it did, it showed that the team had the ability to adapt and evolve. And Steve Cooper had the ability to adapt and evolve and think, well, what I've been trying for so long isn't going to help me out. Let's do something. Let's almost grit our teeth and inflict a bit of pain on ourselves to get there. And I think for Sheffield United, I mean, I watched the goals back last night. I mean, the first goal, certainly Taiwo, he just found himself in a pocket of space between two. I don't know if it was Amidodzic or
Egan
and another guy. And Egan, and he just seemed to have just that yard between the two of them. And if I was a Blade, I'd be like, could they not have got a bit closer? Could they? I mean, the cross, Serge, really, for both goals, Serge Aurier had sort of splendid isolation. I mean, Brennan was forced into the box, came back, played the ball in for Taiwo's goal. And then Woody's goal, Serge again had plenty of time to put it in. I think with Woody's goal, it was a case that there was a Sheffield United guy right there. And when I watched it back, I kind of thought, did the Blade get his head on it before Woody headed it? Actually, Woody just sort of turned and glanced it. And the thing is, and we had the same feeling at Arsenal last week, there's nothing worse for any supporter, and especially those of us that are in a relegation scrap and are going to be. Avoidable goals are like daggers in your chest. Do you know what I mean? And I look, and for Sheffield United, it's those awful, annoying, not derelictions of duty, but they're the ones that, like the likes of Shearer and that, when they're sort of, deigning not to talk about the top 6 on Match of the Day, which you lads will get, like we get this kind of top 6 snobbery where, oh, it's only Nottingham Forest. I mean, we won't show their goal. Oh, it's only Sheffield United. It's only Luton Town. It's only Burnley. It's only Wolves, whatever. They'll say, oh, well, that's naivety. So I think what Hecky's got to do, he's got to get them back on the training ground. And I'll tell you what, there's good spirit about Sheffield United. The supporters, your supporters last night were terrific. Ours, I mean, we've been priding ourselves on our great atmosphere at City Ground. And it was a little bit blunted last night, blunted by Blades. And I think that was, there's so many good signs for Sheffield United.
That's the weight of expectation, though, isn't it? Your expectations have changed because you stayed up.
Yes, exactly, Neil. I mean, and there's this expectation now that the City Ground will be a cauldron every week this season, like it was last season. And I think us as supporters, we have a duty. I've worried that novelty of the first season back in the Premier League for 23 years and all that entailed emotionally will not be quite. We need it to go up a notch from last season, because that difficult second album is often one that finds you out, So I looked at it last night,
and all too well, Dave. Actually.
Yeah.
In fact, what I'm going to do, Dave, just because I'm conscious of giving everyone a fair crack, I will say this: if every football fan of an opposition was like Dave, I think the world would be a better place. Very, very fair. Very, very fair, Dave. Thank you. Stay with us, Dave. We're going to come back to Dave and we're going to ask more questions of that. But, we did look so much better than we did against Palace after that shaky start. I'll just summarise. I know lots of people joining us. I mean, I thought Traore was a real menace. His movement, excellent. Probably needs to strengthen up a little bit. That chance, you have to take that opportunity at Premier League level when it's one-on-one. Norwood had a Norwood game for the most part and was better than he was in the previous match. I am concerned, we've mentioned this, about our left side and how easy it appears to score against us from crosses. Egan, at the moment, doesn't look like John Egan. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm confident that'll change. I'm concerned about our depth too. Asula works hard, but he won't get many opportunities created for him, so his confidence might take a hit, and as a young lad, he doesn't need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for your man of the match, and Neil, your Blades man of the match, please.
Osborne. I thought he was terrific on that right side.
That's the right answer, by the way.
Right. I was going to ask Dave about what he thought about Osborne, but again,
as am I. Actually, that's one of my questions. So we'll get back. We'll come to that later, but I do want to hear from Phil as well. So we'll get all of your man of the match.
I'm going to be really boring and say exactly the same. He's taken so much stick on social media that he'll not have seen, by the way. I'm hoping. But the amount of people that, he's a new Nick Montgomery or the new whoever else it was that we've had, I thought it was great last night. And actually, when Bulldog was not in the team, there was a real sort of whoop of, oh God, what we're going to do in the pub beforehand. But actually, he came in and did a fantastic job. So yeah, he's my man of the match as well.
Jimmy?
I first have to say that I am one of those that has criticised Osborne, and fair play. He shut me up last night. It was very, very good, and he keeps the shirt. Probably not if Baldock comes in, but I would like to see him moved over to left wing back. I think he's earned that if Baldock is fit. But my man of the match has got to be Gus Hamer, and maybe that's my sort of pre-game Osborne bias, because I thought Osborne did very well last night. But Hamer, he just excites you, doesn't he? And the potential that this guy can bring to level us up. It's the sort of signing we need to be making. I think you can see why he's coming for Sander. I think he'll be seen as an acceptable replacement for Sander Berger. I think he'll go on to be better for us than Sander Berger was. Hamer for me, just in terms of the way he made me feel, I suppose, in terms of the Neil talked about the green shoots of hope and things like that. Build this team around him, because him and Vinny Souza, to be fair, for those 60 minutes, looked absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. I thought Hamer, absolutely. Anyone who says he's man of the match, I have no issue with that at all. Gustavo Hamer, the 6th player to score in his Premier League debut for Sheffield United, along with
a certain Greek international.
Premier League.
Sorry.
Brian Dean is one of them. Willie Faulkner, I'll give you. Liverpool at home under Neil Warnock.
Rob Hulse.
Rob Hulse, correct. What about
Jayden Bogle?
Jayden Bogle. And the last one, Mr. Sheffield United himself.
Billy Sharp.
Billy Sharp, Premier League debut for Sheffield United. Of course, Billy Sharp, Premier League debut for Sheffield United. That's very key, because I think he might have played for Southampton in the Premier League. I'm not sure. But anyway, more importantly than that, Phil, how good is Gustavo Hamer?
He's brilliant. And he'll get better. So going back to what Jimmy was saying, I think he will. The more time he has with his teammates. Did you hear his interview? I've only read the transcript of it, but I think they asked him, how are you in the changing room? And his response goes something like, at the moment, I'm quiet because I've got to show the guys what I can do on the pitch. When they see what I can do on the pitch, then I can start to grow in the changing room. And I think that's really telling that he's really motivated. And I think he's going to be absolutely key to any chance that we've got of surviving this year.
Absolutely love that, and love hearing that from him as well. Souza, what did you make of his performance then, Jimmy? In total, of course, he looked like he was not going to be able to carry on, and he actually looked really gutted as well. It looked like he was cross with himself. And I noticed when he was going off, one of the Forest players told him to hurry up, and I think his response was like, "If I could, I would."
I thought it looked great, and another one that really sort of fills me with optimism, because he just looked like a monster. Once he got comfortable, I think he took 5 or 10 minutes, and Nick said this in his match reaction, and I echoed it in the ramble afterwards. I think after that first 5 or 10 minutes, he grew into the role and sort of got comfortable. I think he's going to be we've not had a player like him for some time. He's just a bit of a destroyer, isn't he? He'll break up play, give it easy to Hamer. These are the sorts you can see now why it was Hecky's number one target, because he gives us something completely different. And at this level, we're going to need somebody like that. And to be fair to Norwood, I thought and I've been a critic of Norwood at times. I think it's just his consistency, not his overall levels, but his consistency sometimes falls off. I think the three of them played really well together. And I think going back to something that Dave was talking about, you can tell that we recruit the characters, the right characters, and the sort of leaders and players that will give everything for the shirt, which is fantastic. And that levels us up to a degree in certain times, such as last night when backs are against the wall with the underdogs, nobody gives us a chance. I just don't think the quality's there all over the pitch. So you can look at players like Willisula and say, he tried his socks off, he worked really hard, and he's going to be some player, and he will. I agree with all of that. But at the moment, he's not quite up to it. And if we'd have had a McBurney on the pitch, and a lot of people are hot and cold on McBurney, but we know that he can stand up to these Premier League defenders, hold the ball up and even give it, so we're just lacking that bit of quality.
I think the other thing with Sousa is going to help Norwood, because when we've been exposed, like in the previous Premiership season, Norwood's like the last man, and he does do a lot of tackles. He makes a lot of blocks, but he's not a physical unit like Sousa. But Sousa in that position could make Norwood a more effective player. And I'm not saying that Norwood's going to play 90 every time, but he can pull strings. And if he's got that backup behind him, it could release him to be the player we know he is.
I agree. I think it was such a shame. Sorry, go on, Phil.
Sorry, Jimmy. No, go on.
I was just going to say, it was a shame for me that Sousa weren't fit enough to start against Palace, because him to be sat on Eze in that number 10 role could have potentially negated him a lot more than Bash was able to do. And it was just disappointing that he weren't quite up to speed in time, but we'll never know, will we? So sorry, Phil, go on, mate.
No, I'm just going to ask, were you surprised that they didn't put Davis on rather than bring in the young guy on with 10 minutes to go?
Well, should we just mention that Davis has not really had any pre-season friendlies to get up to speed? I was amazed he was on the bench, to be honest. Maybe he's a super fit lad and he's been doing his own routine. But no, for me, quick answer is no, I wasn't surprised for that. Purely.
I wasn't surprised.
My only comment on that, and I'm talking about Andre Brooks, is that, and Brooks has been fantastic in pre-season, by the way. But when you're 1-1 with 10 minutes to go, Davis can obviously play 10 minutes. Otherwise, you're right, he wouldn't be on the bench. Would he not have been somebody with Premier League experience to help us to see that last 10 minutes out and get a point rather than none?
I think, though, Phil, it's more about bringing Hackford on was the situation. I think Brooks actually played pretty well, but Hackford still hasn't got the experience. And, there's certain positions that he got in which let Forest through. And that's the problem we've got. We've got development lads that are coming on. I mean, you weren't going to throw Louis Marsh onto that sort of thing. He's just making the numbers on the bench. And I thought Davis was doing the same. But if we'd have had a more experienced person at the top of the pitch, then again, you might have closed down the centre-backs to stop that move actually taking place that resulted in the winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say that Sousa, I think, was signed probably by looking at the players that we lost. I don't think Sousa is ever in any way, shape or form a Sander replacement. I think ideally Hecky would have had Sander next to him, and it's probably just his athleticism. He's probably looking at maybe previous games last season where Norwood maybe hasn't got quite the legs if the ball is lost to get back. Sousa is going to offer us that, and when he's up to complete full fitness, and I just wish we'd had so many of these players in earlier, I think he'll be absolutely able to do that. We're going to get more Forest thoughts very soon, but I'm conscious of the time. So I'm just going to say, Neil, injuries, cramp, concern, should these things be happening? Is this a bigger issue, something we need to look at? Because if you get a hamstring injury at Sheffield United, it is bad news.
It absolutely is. I mean, I was thinking you were talking about me in the stand then, just watching it. But when you think about Brewster and R&D and the injuries Sander had for that Premiership season, it's and I knew, looking at Baldock against Palace, I knew it wasn't a hammy, and that's another one of the Hecky's smoke screens, isn't it? But it's concerning that we're losing players like that on a long-term basis for it. But you could see again, coming up to that Traore chance, I was worried he was running himself into the ground and being left on too long, that he would pull something because he's such a live wire. And Sousa was obviously cramping up as well at the time, and then he was going off. But the other thing, my son and I talked about that chance that Traore went through. And if he was fresher, if it was earlier on in the game, I'm wondering whether he would have rounded the keeper rather than try the shot at that particular time. But I think all of this sort of stuff would be coming with fitness and with match fitness and understanding the guys. But I'm just really excited about that, like Traore. But yeah. Injuries.
Me too. Dave, we're welcoming you back in. Forest, man of the match.
It's quite tricky, I think.
The first time I've ever heard you lost for words, Dave.
It's the first time I've ever heard myself lost for words. I don't really think anybody stood out to a great extent, but I guess for the impact he had, even in the short time that he was on the field, to eventually propel us to the victory, I've got to say Ryan Yates, which begs the question, why did he not start?
Yeah, I mean, I had him down to start on my preview, actually.
Yeah, Morgan did some nice. I think lots of our lads did. Morgan Gibbs-White. Sorry about that. I think with lots of our lads, the bits and bobs were done here and there. I don't think there was one outstanding player. I think there was an outstanding player for Sheffield United, and that was Gustavo Hamer. I've just been looking at the ratings on the BBC, which the fans give in, and Hamer is a clear winner of your man of the match amongst your family. So I thought he was excellent, and I listened to his interview afterwards. He speaks very, very eloquently. He's a smart lad. I think you've got yourself. I was talking to a guy who sits next to me in the Trent End, and I was watching Hamer, and I said to him, I said to my mate Mark, I said, what? I wish we'd had him. He would have been ideal for us. And I think, I personally would have liked to have gone and got a buy one, get one free, him and Gyökeres from Coventry City last year. And, I think it's testament to how good a manager Mark Robins is to have made him as good as he is. I mean, Mark Robins is a superb manager in my view.
And from a Sheffield United,
From a Sheffield United point of view, I'm really touched to hear you lads all talk about Benny Osborne, because he's a dear little favourite of mine. And the stick he gets at Sheffield United, he got the stick at Nottingham Forest. And, there are certain players, I don't know if it's because he's small. I think people judge a lot of these people in the
perfect height for a man. I'll just repeat that.
Yeah. But he did a really manful job there last night. I'm not sure it was his ideal position. And I'm sure there'll be lots of players thinking, why is this guy in the team? And obviously there were lots of Forest people going, he left us to go there. And they've got these childish notions about players. I thought Ben played really well.
He did play really well. And Dave, just before you move on to Jack, so Ben as well, I remember he scored a goal for Forest, which was technically absolutely outstanding. I don't think Sheffield United fans have quite seen enough technical wizardry that he does possess. Of course, he's a coach. Yeah. And he started.
There was the one against Derby where he won it for us at their shed in injury time, and then there was a goal he scored against Leeds on a New Year's Day. We beat Leeds 4-2, where he kind of dovetailed with Big Daryl Murphy and popped a goal in the top corner. It's an absolute thing of wonder. And Benny's all heart. He gives the lot for whoever he plays for, and I think there are certain. Ryan Yates gets it for us. Joe Worrell's hammered all the time. I don't know if it's because they're local lads and they're kind of. I think people play so much FIFA these days that they think an English guy or a British guy is somehow dull and beige and all this kind of stuff. And I thought Ben played really well last night. Jack Robinson gives his all. Because there's so many connections. There are so many connections between our club and your club. I mean, the one that disappointed me, it was Max Lowe. I thought, I kind of looked at him thinking, well, without any disrespect to Max, rather you than us.
He's got an ankle injury, Dave. He's got an ankle injury.
Do you think, Neil, that ankle injury was before the game?
Yeah.
Well, didn't he get that on? I heard he got that on one of those. Sprinklers.
Oh, yes, the sprinklers at Derby. You're absolutely right. Now I know what you're talking about. Yes, because of course he swiped the air. I don't know how much of an ankle injury is going to be responsible for that. I think that was just eye off the ball, and really it was a case of an error was the difference between the two sides at half time, and an avoidable error. And at this level, every error is going to be punished, and it was a shame for Max. And Dave, you're right.
Yeah.
He's had
on the subject on the subject of Max. He nearly cost us our place in the Premier League, because at Wembley against Huddersfield Town, he brought Lewis O'Brien down. John Moss didn't even considered to look at it on VAR. And if they'd have gone to VAR that day, we might not even have been playing you last night. So, these are the sliding doors moments. Yeah, so I just think, for us, it was difficult to pick anybody out. I thought it was a decent team effort. But I actually thought the best player on the field, probably from a technical point of view, was Hamer.
I don't think anyone will dispute that, Dave. I'm going to ask you this question, Dave, before I let you escape, which is, where are Forest going to finish this season, my friend?
I've got us to finish 15th. And, to be honest with you, lads, give me 17th now, because as dull as that sounds and as predictable as that is a thing to say, it means that the club I love so much, and I love football generally. So football isn't about just the one club. I love all football clubs, right? But the club I love, if we get 17th, then that means my club will be back in the Premier League again next season. And what sustains me, having stayed up last year, and that was an incredible achievement with great joy attached to it. You'd like for Forest to see a little bit of progress into maybe that little echelon that's just above the bottom section.
Well, you would.
Give me 17. Now, what sustains me is Brighton and Hove Albion, to whom I like to think Nottingham Forest aspire and Sheffield United aspire and lots of others. Their first 3 seasons in the Premier League were 16th, 17th, and 15th. And so, if we are above that dotted line, that's all I care about. Nice to have is 14th, maybe 13th, and all this kind of stuff. But 17th for you lads, and for me, for Luton Town, for Burnley, for Wolverhampton Wanderers, for Everton, those kind of teams. Maybe Fulham without Mitrovic. 17th is all.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. I want to thank Dave so much for joining us. Great to get the views of a Forest fan. We always appreciate opposition fans joining us. Right, so Phil, what did you make of Larouci before we wish everyone a good rest of their weekend?
I'm so glad you asked me that, because I was going to butt in on Dave when he was talking about Benny Osborne. I thought he had his best game in a Sheffield United shirt. I thought he got us up the pitch better. I thought he got a lot of space that we could perhaps have exploited better, and perhaps we will do in other similar types of games when he's been here longer. So I think he was a real plus last night. However, it was one game or one half a game. Who knows next time? But I thought it a lot better yesterday, yeah.
Jimmy, Larouci, because he came on and a lot of people are saying very contrasting things. And, sometimes you get people saying, give me your player ratings. And I look down at these and it's like every single one, you can go from one to another, that they've all watched a completely different game to me, because I cannot comprehend. But what did you make of it?
I slightly disagree with Phil there, because I think I agree in terms of a lot of the good things he did. I think it was his best game in a United shirt. It was the brightest he's looked. But I also think he gave away a penalty which should have been looked at.
I agree with that.
Was it?
And if that's
he didn't get the ball, did he? And he clipped the Forest player's heels.
I thought it were a penalty.
In the Premier League, I mean, in my day, it's never been a pen. But the softer the game goes these days, you just look at the facts. Does the defender get the ball?
No,
well, it could be argued it was a tangle of legs, and that's possibly what they'll have looked at with VAR.
Maybe so. But I think if that's awarded, he goes from 0 to 0 straight away. And I also think that for the winning goal, where is our left wing back stopping the cross from the right wing? Where is he? So it's good. It's okay to focus on what he does do, but also what doesn't he do? Because we needed him there to block that cross. It was in acres of space. We'd already seen the brilliant delivery he'd put in for a 1 year for the first goal. And look, I think Egan has a lot to answer for that second goal as well. But why aren't we closing that cross down from Larouci's man, to be fair?
Neil?
So that was me.
Yeah, I've been a little bit worried about Larouci defensively. I've seen in some of the pre-season games that I've watched that he has some attacking ability.
Because he was a left winger, so that's probably a very good point, Neil. He's been converted to a sort of left back / left wing back. Absolutely right.
But I think he's a young lad. He's coming from France into another environment in England where maybe it's a bit of time, and I see a lack of confidence and that could grow. But you're right, Jimmy. If he has something that goes to 0, that could knock his confidence hugely. But there was a couple of occasions where there's some. Robinson actually put some brilliant balls down the wing to him. In that second half. And there was one where he was about 20 yards clear and he didn't put the burners on. And I think he's got some pace. But if had done, then he might have created something. But I think there's a lot more to come from him if he gets confident and if he gets a run in the team. But I still worry about his defensive capabilities because cutting out crosses has got to be the thing that we.
It has. And, Trusty can also play left wing back. We're thinking about Osborne can play left wing back. Baldock will probably be back soon, so we might not have to see Ben Osborne playing right wing back. I want to thank Dave for joining us. Jimmy, enjoy your holiday. Phil, a pleasure. Neil, top man, thank you. And thank you all for watching. We'll be back with more free content each and every day. Until next time, cheers.